2025 has been a horrible year for the fighting nerds. Every single one of them has taken a loss, and we're going to talk about every single one of their losses. We're even going to talk about Prates in his next fight against Leon Edwards. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Jean Silva, we're going to talk about him first. Jean Silva, I'm going to say this. He had a chance in that second round to beat Diego Lopes. He had a chance to beat Diego Lopes in this fight. In that second round, he could have won that second round, and we would have saw a different fight. But Diego Lopes caught him with a nasty spinning elbow. But let's talk about the first round of this fight. Because the first round of this fight, they were feeling each other out on the feet. And Jean Silva, when he feels like that, there's a problem with Jean Silva, and I think it's his emotions. He lets his emotions get the best of him. And especially when he knows he's losing the fight, he just goes into this like panic attack where he tries to do something crazy to win the round. And especially his coping mechanism is to literally, touch gloves in the middle of a fight or do some emoting to reset the fight and for him to take center stage, the center of the cage. And he did that in this fight. He did that against, Diego Lopes. He's done it against Mitchell. He's done it against Maurice Ruffy. Like, he's done it in all his fights in the UFC so far. That we've, I don't think against Wilson he did it, but against those three guys he's done it. And I think in the first round he did the spinning elbow, overextended. Diego Lopes, he's just better high Q. He's too good for the featherweight division, man. And I knew he was gonna win this fight. I said it was going to be 50-50, but I leaned more towards Diego because of his experience and overall size, and it showed. He took Jean Silva to the ground. He immediately got full mount and was raining some crazy elbows and ground and pound, and Silva knew he was in trouble. And I thought he was going to finish Silva in the first round, and Silva was such in a panic mode that he was trying to use literally all his strength to just push Diego Lopes out. And that was not going to happen. Diego Lopes is one of the biggest featherweights in the division, strongest featherweights in the division, and he's here trying to just Derek Lewis his way out of here. Like no, that's not going to happen. And yeah, he loses the first round. In the second round, that's when I was like, oh, he's starting to look good. And he was catching Diego Lopes with some shots. And I'm here like, damn, he's looking really good now. He's catching Diego Lopes clean. But it looked like he was trying to go for the finish because it was like, I feel like he just thought, oh, if I don't get the finish, I'm going to lose this fight. And he let his emotions get the best of him. Spamming spinning elbows. Going crazy over on Diego Lopes, and Diego Lopes timed that spinning elbow perfectly, lands it, and drops Jean Silva. And I think if Jean Silva I don't know, like, obviously he wasn't listening to his cornermen, he said it, but if he was just listening to them, and if he would have just composed himself, take a breather in the middle of that fight, like in the middle of that second round, step back, and just kind of did what he did with Bryce Mitchell, that he was just, throwing his 1-2, his jab, the leg kick. If he was doing that against Diego Lopes, he probably would have won the second round, and we would have saw a different fight. Probably would have saw a way more competitive fight, because Diego Lopes was eating some shots, but he has a granite chin. And we know that Diego Lopes does not get knocked out like that. He does not get knocked out. This man has literally, I don't want to say a Vittori chin, but he has a titanium chin, bro. He does not get knocked out. And Jean Silva, his emotions and basically him cost him the fight. Do I think it was a fraud check? No, because I think this was just too soon of a step up. I think he should have fought somebody in the 8 to 10 rankings, like somewhere a little bit closer to his number. But Diego Lopes wanted an opponent. This guy was willing to step up. I still think Jean Silva's a dog like that. Rough, whatever. But, yeah. I think this was just a loss. It wasn't a fraud check. This next one we're going to talk about, though, this one was a fraud check. Maurice Ruffy got fraud checked by Benoit Saint Denis, and you cannot tell me no. Maurice Ruffy started off the year right. He got a spinning KO kick against Bobby Green, and it looked amazing. It was a KO of the year so far, and we all, I think the Fighting Nerds hype and Maurice Ruffy's hype made us think he was going to do that to Benoit Saint Denis, especially that Benoit Saint Denis was out here losing and looking crap, especially his win against Prepflick or whatever his name was. He looked dog shit. And, against Moicano, he looked dog shit. Against, Poirier, he got fraud checked and lost. And we're here thinking, all right, I think we all thought that Ruffy was going to, go out there and KO Benoit Saint Denis. Benoit Saint Denis proved us wrong and showed that he's still a marauder. Went out there, marauded his way to a finish. He literally pressured Ruffy so much that Ruffy could not get any striking off. One of the reasons why Ruffy lost this fight. He could not get any kicks. He could not strike against Benoit Saint Denis. I think Ruffy was more worried about getting taken down than actually him doing more output. And I don't want to say Ruffy's grappling was horrible, because he did get up in bad, he got up and, he got out of positions against Benoit Saint Denis, but his grappling looked horrible when he didn't have urgency to get out of bad positions, and especially in this face crank. Benoit Saint Denis got his back. He just put in the face crank in, and I'm here thinking, all right, it's not a really bad face crank. We've seen worse, but Ruffy didn't have the urgency to get out of it. He just thought, oh, I can get out of this. Maybe he'll let go, and no. Benoit Saint Denis squeezed his way into a win. Ruffy tapped, and this was a fraud check. And I think Ruffy really needs to take a year off and work on his grappling, because he does not deserve a ranked opponent after that loss. He does not deserve a ranked opponent, and I think his next fight needs to be against a grappler. If he doesn't show us that his grappling is good, there's no point in shooting him up in the rankings, because everybody knows that to beat Ruffy is to out-grapple him, and he's just going to get out-grappled by all the other ranked opponents. Let's be honest. So Ruffy, take a year off, brother. Work on that grappling with Borralho, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But that's what we're going to talk about Borralho next. This was a loss. Borralho, this wasn't a fraud check. This was a loss. Borralho, he went out there and just faced literally one of the best kickboxers in the UFC. One of the fastest hands in the UFC. I swear Imavov has some of the fastest hands, bro. Some of the punches that were just landing was just insanely fast, especially for the middleweight division. He's literally one of the best strikers in the middleweight division. And the problem with Borralho is, if he's not getting any takedowns, if he's not mixing it up, and he has to strike with you, it's gonna be a problem. And it was a problem in this fight. He could not grapple, he could not take down Imavov, and Imavov just went out there and outstruck him for 5 rounds. Obviously, the stats, the scorecard is gonna say something different, but this was a super competitive fight. Borralho was still landing some crazy shots against Imavov, and he was still kind of in this fight. In my head, I thought he won the first round, and I think it was the 4th round, maybe the 3rd. I don't remember. I thought it was 3-2. But then I looked back and I saw the first round again, and I was like, you know what? Imavov did a little bit more than Borralho. Borralho just had him up in the cage and didn't do anything. So yeah. I think for Borralho, I don't really know what's next for him, because the middleweight division is starting to get good, especially with now the next fight. That to be honest, I think if Fluffy or RDR get a finish, they might leap Imavov, even though I think that shouldn't happen. I think Imavov should be next for Chimaev. I think he should be Chimaev's next victim. And these four guys, Imavov, Borralho, RDR, and Fluffy, they need an impressive performance to be Chimaev's next victim. And I think in Borralho's head, he just said, you know what, I gotta go out there and just put on a show, and hopefully I can beat him on the feet if I can take him down. And that was just, that was not gonna happen. It wasn't gonna happen. And yeah, Borralho lost. But let's go to the next one. Carlos Prates. We're going to talk about Carlos Prates a little bit longer here because he did lose to Ian Gary. Was it a fraud check? I don't want to say it was a fraud check, but I just think that Ian Gary's just too freaking good, man. And it's sad to say that he's so good. He's so good on the feet. He's so good on the ground. He literally just... He did his thing against Carlos Prates. And in the 5th round, when he was gassed out that Prates was out here about to finish this man in the 5th round, that this man Ian Gary was crawling to the cage like a little puss, he couldn't get the finish. Carlos Prates could not get the finish. And in this fight, he wasn't really striking like that. He wasn't really throwing against Ian Gary like that. Ian Gary, it was all Ian Gary in this fight, bro. And especially on short notice, that's why I'm like, bro, Ian Gary's just good. He's good like that, bro. He's really good. But Carlos Prates then later on got a spinning elbow KO against Jeff Neal. Had an amazing performance here. Called out Leon Edwards for Brazil. That was not going to happen. That was too short of a time for Leon Edwards. But the fight is going to happen. And I think Carlos Prates is going to end this year on a win against Leon Edwards. I think he's going to be able to outstrike Leon Edwards on the feet. Unless Leon Edwards goes out here and starts to grapple, I'm going to lose my crap. But I think if Leon Edwards goes out here and grapples with Carlos Prates, he might get the dub. But I don't think Leon Edwards is going to do that. I think this is going to be a really good grappling match. I think Carlos Prates, he's going to go out there and outstrike Leon Edwards. And I think he might get a finish in the 3rd round. But let's recap the fighting nerds. Let's recap these guys. Borralho, I think what his career is going to be at the end of the day is that he's always going to be a ranked top 10, top 5 middleweight that just doesn't crack to get... He doesn't get a title shot at the end of the day. I don't think he'll ever get a title shot unless he goes on a 2-fight win streak against the top guys in the division. I don't think he's going to be champ. I just don't think Borralho is going to be champ. And it's sad to say because I kind of like Borralho a little bit, but I just don't think he's going to be champ, especially with the striking he has. Carlos Prates, he's going to have to work on his grappling because in that welterweight division, there's a bunch of good grapplers, especially if Islam Makhachev wins and decides to fight there a little bit longer. He needs to work on his grappling. I do think he has really good striking though, and that's definitely going to keep him in the rankings of that welterweight division. But for how long? Because if he doesn't have the grappling, he might be screwed. Ruffy. Man, we thought, they had us with Ruffy, bro. I really thought Ruffy, I don't want to say he was going to be a champ, but I thought he was going to be able to be at least ranked in that division if he had the grappling. But now that we know he does not have the grappling, if he doesn't improve, he's still young, but if he doesn't improve, I don't even think he cracks top 10. Especially in that lightweight division, I don't think he cracks top 10. If his grappling is not that good, he might just stay, in the 11 to 15 in the rankings, or just outside the rankings if he doesn't get his grappling. Jean Silva, if he does not get his emotions in check, I think he'll just be a ranked opponent. But I don't want to say he'll crack. He'll probably get a championship. He'll get a title shot. I think Jean Silva will still get a title shot, especially if Volkanovski retires. If Volkanovski retires, and they need an opponent. And if Jean Silva goes on a win streak, or he gets a really impressive win again against a top 10 ranked opponent, they might just give him a title shot. I just think they might. I think Jean Silva, out of all these guys, will get a title shot still at the end of this day, and I think he could be champion still. I think he could still be champion. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about the Fighting Nerds. I don't think they're frauds. I just think they weren't that good, and I think the hype was a blessing and a curse for these guys. It was a blessing because they got their names out there. They're now, their gym is literally the face of MMA. But it's a curse because they finally met their matches, and now it's just about, will they overcome them? But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm GNFMMA. Like and subscribe.